Hi, my name's Keri Barnum. I am here for New Shelves Books and Free Advice Friday, the hour every Friday where we get together to talk about book marketing, publishing, writing, anything having to do with the craft and actual publishing and marketing of books. And we take questions live, either right here on Zoom at newshelves.com/FAF, or we take them by email at questions@freeadvicefridays.com. Today, we actually have a bigger topic, more than just one question. We have the bigger topic of beta readers. And beta readers is something we get questions about on and off pretty often. Where do you find beta readers? What does a beta reader do? Do I need beta readers? All of these things. And so I wanted to talk a little bit because not only do we get questions about that, but my daughter Emma has actually been beta reading for Emerald Lake's books this week, and she's been reading a new title called Greta Grace. It's her age level, and she is just adoring the chance to read and give her very own feedback. It was hilarious. We were on a Zoom call with Tara and Mark over at Emerald Lake's books yesterday, and Emma felt very important to be able to meet the publishers and talk to them. And it kind of brought up some things that I know that people want to know and ask about beta readers. Number one, the question we get is, how do I find beta readers? And the answer is pretty simple. You ask, you reach out and you ask people. If you have middle grade fiction, go find people who have kids around that age and simply ask if they would be interested in reading. Ask library groups, because a lot of times the libraries have reading groups or even like book club groups for younger kids. Ask if they would be interested in beta reading, and ask adults who have kids around that age. I think one of the things that we're certainly finding, and I think that it was true with Tara and Mark and I with Emma, is that what adults read and their feedback is sometimes very different than what kids get out of it. So go to not only people that you trust to beta read your book, but also go to your audience. If your audience is kids, go to the kids. If your audience is people who are caretakers of Alzheimer's patients, then go to them. Go to the actual people that you're writing for and make sure that you're getting their direct feedback, because I think that's really important, that you're getting the feedback from not only people that you trust or people in the industry, but you're getting feedback from the actual audience you're hoping to serve and that you're hoping to have read your book. And again, you ask. Sometimes beta readers will be paid. There are certainly some that will do the service to be paid. Some will do it for like a gift card. And a lot of beta readers will do it simply because they want to read a new book and they're excited to have the chance to give input and to just read something new. But it's very important that when you are working with a beta reader, you know what their job really is and what it is not. And that there are clear expectations of what you are wanting from them. For example, I have seen people say, well, I sent it to a beta reader and they didn't get all my proofreading errors. That is not your beta reader's job. Your beta reader is not your proofreader. Your beta reader is meant to read your story and to fill in the gaps, to give you feedback on the story. Now, certainly a great beta reader, especially if it's age appropriate, will be saying, oh, I found a lot of typos or different things like that, and they will give you that feedback. But they are not a trained proofreader in most cases. They are there to give you feedback on the story, to tell you what they liked, what they didn't like. They are there to help you develop your story and make sure that it's really ready to go to print. Are there any holes? Did you have a character that was named Tom all the way until about halfway through, and then suddenly you switched it to Bert and that kind of thing, and they're confused there? It's also important to note that the difference between a paid and a volunteer beta reader. A volunteer beta reader is literally just giving you their time. Please know that because they are doing this on a volunteer basis, they are more likely to do it on their own time, and honestly, they're more likely to maybe not get you the feedback. because again, they don't feel the pressure of getting compensation for it. So if they don't like the book and they don't want to tell you, sometimes they'll just stop reading and not really get back to you. Now, we certainly hope that does not happen. And if you ever beta read, please don't do that. But it does happen a lot of the time. It's also important to know what your expectations are. And so when you are sending someone or asking someone to beta read, lay out what you're asking for. We're hoping that you'll read this book and answer these 3 questions. Or we're really hoping that you'll read the book and make notes on what you liked and didn't like, and then have a 15-minute phone conversation with us about it. Whatever your expectations are, lay them out in the beginning so that the beta reader knows what they're getting into. Because you may have these expectations of, it's a beta reader. Of course, they're going to mark down every proofread error they find, and they'll give me feedback on what they thought, and they'll basically write, a paper about it. Whereas your beta reader may just be thinking, I'm going to read this new book and say whether I like it or not. So it's important that you have the expectations, and also keep in mind, if this is volunteer beta reading, what they're willing to do may be less than you were hoping for, at which point you have to decide whether that feedback, even though it's less than you were hoping for, is still okay. Another thing I want to say about beta readers is that when you get their feedback is not up for argument or discussion. This is not an editor who is making changes or suggesting changes to your manuscript, and you are deciding whether or not you want to implement them. When we get feedback from a beta reader, you can ask for more detail, you can ask, for further explanation, but it is not up for negotiation or argument, because their opinion is their opinion. It's not for us to say, well, no, that's not what you read, or that's not how it is. If that's what the beta reader got, that's what they got. We thank them for their input. We thank them for their time. And then we have to look at it ourselves to say, okay, if readers are saying this, especially more than one, is it my manuscript that needs to be changed? Is it my manuscript that needs to be developed more? And I think that's really important. It's the same thing when we get reviews. When we get reviews, we don't respond to reviews. Negative reviews do not get a response saying that's not true or arguing. It is just what it is. Yeah, and I think that Tara's saying it's a great chance to ask clarifying questions when they provide feedback like that. And I completely agree. If you get feedback that maybe is a little negative or questioning or things like that, it's a great chance to say, man, thank you for that feedback. Can I ask you a couple more questions, because I would love to know more about that and how I can work on it. That is the attitude that people will respond positively to. That is the attitude that will get you further in your writing career. And I can tell you, this kind of interaction, this beta reader and response and getting feedback in response, this happens whether you're self-published, traditionally published, or anywhere along the way. If you can take feedback, and I love it, Hank Philippi Ryan, actually, when we were doing an interview not too long ago, after her book hit USA Today bestseller, she said, it's really important that when I get feedback from people that I realize they may have some great ideas too. And that all of that feedback, if I take it the right way, and if I take it and I make myself better, I'm only going to help myself. I'm only going to help my books. So I think it's important to have that open-minded aspect, even though it may be a little bit painful. I think sometimes we have this idea that our books are, they're practically done. The manuscript is done, and then you get feedback, and sometimes it's a hard feedback. But people, especially beta readers that you have specifically sought out to give you feedback on your book, are not there to be mean. They're not trying to just weigh you down. You've asked for feedback and they're giving it. They are doing what you've asked them to do. And it's really important that our attitude, when that comes back, is positive and accepting, and that we learn from it rather than being crushed by it, because that's no one's intention. See, I've got chat over here. Look, I'm struggling. I know that's no surprise. All right, let's see. And I love this from Ellen. I had to accept the feedback from my beta readers over my editor's feedback. If I had not gotten the beta readers to do their thing, I think I may have written a book my readers didn't want. And I think that's important too. Your editor has ideas and your editor has great feedback. Hopefully you've got an editor that's been in the industry, and sometimes your editor will have ideas though that you push back on. That is the difference. An editor is someone who will challenge you, but it's still your right to say yes or no. It's still your chance to say, well, I don't know, but it's my story and I want to write it this way. You have a little bit more pushback. But when it comes to beta readers, this is not back and forth. This is not pushback. It's a learning opportunity. And sometimes you take your beta reader feedback and you go back to your editor and say, hey, this is what my beta readers were saying. And there were multiple, so let's work on this. And again, I think it's important. It's all a part of the process. With that said, do you have to have beta readers? I get this question a lot. Do I absolutely have to? Well, no, you don't have to. However, it's a really good idea. It's a good idea. Think of it like a restaurant. When a restaurant opens, I'm a really big fan of Food Network and food shows, so this is stemming from that. But think of a restaurant. When they open, they have a soft opening, right? They have a day where they open up and they have kind of a test run to see how it works, to see how their menu works. And then they learn from that, they adapt and they change before they open for real, because it's way better to have a test run with a small group and kind of adjust from there than to put something out into the world and say, this is it, this is our big debut, and then realize you've got problems. And that's hard to adjust after you've already made your big debut, after you've already officially launched. So beta readers are not a requirement, but it's a really good idea to get some beta reader feedback for sure. Yeah, and I'm hearing from Nancy that beta readers for her friend Lori, who is publishing a book soon, was incredible, that their advice helped to really organize the book and they were appreciated. And I think, again, that's very true. Every once in a while, you'll hear a beta reader horror story where someone's like, well, I had a beta reader and they were psycho. And it could happen. I mean, it could happen, but I don't think that's very often. I don't think that's the norm. And overall, I think beta readers are amazing assets. These are people who are actually reading books in your genre, who are looking at your book and reading it, but they're also keeping in mind other books they've recently read like your book and saying, oh, well, you know, this wasn't organized, or this didn't make sense. Or maybe, I mean, maybe you have a mystery and they're like, well, I figured out the mystery in the first chapter, so maybe you need to have a little more surprise. Or I think it's also important, sometimes our beta readers can be different from us. If you have a book that is centered around a culture that is not your own, having beta readers from that culture give you honest feedback about your representation is so important. If you are a man writing characters from a woman's point of view, having females give you feedback is important. I think that is something I've seen again and again on Twitter, is sometimes how people are misrepresented, because when you're a writer, you have this amazing opportunity, but also responsibility to write characters that go all over the place, right? We're not just, when you're writing a book, you can't just write one character. You've got a multitude of characters, and sometimes that covers different ethnicities and religions and cultures. And it is important that when you're doing that, that you get feedback from those people so that you know that what you're writing is authentic and that it is doing a good job of representing what you want it to represent. And so that, I think, is something that we're seeing more and more. We're seeing more sensitivity readers. We're seeing people who are reaching out to the cultures and groups, and that's a big deal. I mean, I think I've read more than one book where it was written by a man and the female characters, and I'm like, That wouldn't actually happen. Like, there's no way. In fact, it's one of my husband and I will listen to the same audiobooks, and then it's really funny because we'll discuss them. So I'll give my idea of how I thought the book went, and he'll give his idea. And it's funny because I'm like, well, I hated it because the women in this book were just outrageously misrepresented, and his feedback is different. And so I think it's always funny to get the multiple points of view. Yeah, I think if you want to be careful about confirmation bias too. If 5 readers say chapter 10 doesn't work and 1 says they loved it, be careful about ignoring the 5 negative critiques in favor of the one you want to be true. And I couldn't agree more. I think that if you get a negative critique, whether it's 1 or 5, you really have to look at it honestly. And if you do get, more in favor of the negative than the positive, do you really want 1 in 5 readers loving your book? Let's put it this way, do you want 1 in 5 of your reviews to be 1 star? No one does. You don't want 1 5-star review and 4 1-star reviews. So make sure that we're really take an honest look at it. And sometimes you'll say, well, I had to do this, or I did this intentionally for a specific reason. And that's between you and your God, your writing. But that is a beta reader's job, is to give you their honest feedback. And I think that it's also important when we do beta reading that we get their whole opinions. If you have beta readers, when it's time to go to your cover, send them, if they're willing, send them your cover and see what they think. That's something we did with Emma on the Greta Grace book, is that there were some working covers, and Mark, Terry, and I are looking at them and trying to see what worked and what didn't work. And I was like, why don't we bring Emma in here, the person who you'd really be wanting to pick up that book? And her outlook on it was in some ways similar, but it was also very different in the sense that she was like, oh, well, she should be wearing this outfit because they talk about it. And so I think sometimes that feedback can also help develop the cover, because I know I've said this and I will say it until I'm blue in the face. Your cover has to represent not just the story. I know we can get stuck on our cover representing exactly what's in the book, but really the cover has to represent what's in the book in a way that attracts the reader you want to have. It does not matter if it's, oranges to oranges, apples to apples. It matters that you are doing it in a depiction that attracts the reader you want to have. It has to fit in the genre. If you are writing a book that is a romance, a historical romance, I don't care if it's Bodice Ripper or if it's really clean historical romance. You need to go look at other historical romance books and make sure that you're fitting within the genre. People kind of are trained in our brain to look for the books that we like to read. And if we're not fitting in there, if we're not fitting into our audience, then we're never going to succeed. So I think that is kind of an overview of beta readers. And if you have questions, again, drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A. But beta readers, I think, are helpful. I think they're wonderful. Typically, beta readers will come after your edit. So you'll write your book, you'll get it edited, and then you'll get a beta reader. Keep in mind, your beta reader is not your proofreader. Your proofreader should typically come at the end, right before you publish, and they're catching all your last minute errors, and you did there instead of there, or affect instead of effect, that kind of thing. That is your last minute proofread. That's not your beta read. So they are wonderful. I think you can find them in reading groups. You can go to libraries and specifically look for different groups and offer them your book. You can go to other authors, sometimes can be really helpful as well. Other authors and writing groups can be wonderful. And go to whoever you're writing for and get their opinion, because ultimately, as a mom, sure, I have an opinion, and yes, a children's book needs to be marketable for teachers and for parents, but if I can't get my kid to read it because she's not interested, It doesn't matter. I can't tell you how many books I've bought because I was like, wow, this should be great. I think Emma will love it. And she opens it and it takes her months to read because she's not excited. So it's important that you actually go to your reader, because of that, ultimately, if my daughter says, Mom, I read this whole book in 2 days and I loved it, are there more? I'm going to go find that author and I am going to find every book that I can from them because I want my daughter to read. And so that's important too, that you are great. It's for parents, it's for teachers, and it has to have certain boxes checked for them. But ultimately, it is your direct reader and audience that dictates what's going to work and doesn't, and what sells. So again, if you've got questions about beta readers or follow-up, chat or Q&A, love to hear it. But for now, we're going to move on to a couple more of the questions that we had dropped into our Q&A box. Goodreads currently has a 99 giveaway sale in August. Is it worth it for children's picture book authors? I have to say I love the Goodreads giveaways. For the 99, if it's 99 right now, usually it's 119. You want the cheaper one. Do not go for the more expensive option. It is not worth it. I literally have never heard anyone rave about the more expensive option or say, man, I'm so glad I did that. Go with the cheaper one. So for $99, and it can work for any genre. I currently have a client with a niche nonfiction who's gotten over 1,000 people signing up for his book. And he's definitely getting, this book it's been out for a little while. It came out in January, and he's definitely getting a few more sales over on Amazon right now, but Kindle page reads have gone up as people have kind of, I think, decided they were interested in the book, clicked over to the Amazon page, and were like, oh, it's on Kindle Unlimited. I can just read it right now, and I don't have to wait to win the book. Children's picture books, I think, can be one that obviously children are not scrolling around on Goodreads, but parents are, and parents will often say, oh, well, I'll just enter this, and if I win it, great, I'll give it to little Jimmy and we can read it together. So I do think children's picture books can go up there and do very well. Mystery and romance does really well on Goodreads, and it can in some cases breathe new life into a book. I do think that a Goodreads giveaway does best right before a book comes out. I'm talking, we end that giveaway about a week before the book comes out, or 2 weeks before the book comes out. I think that's when it does best, because it gets people interested in your upcoming launch. It gets people putting that book, to enter a Goodreads giveaway, people have to put the book on their to-read shelf, which means it's there. They will see it later and think, maybe I should read it. But more than that, not only will they get notification if they win the book or if they don't win the book, which has all your book information, but when you launch the book, every single person on your to-read, who has it on their to-read shelf, which is every person who entered that giveaway, will get an email from Goodreads with your book information and your buy links on your launch day. That's a lot of marketing that comes, at $99, if your book's about to come out, you do that. That is awesome. That's a lot of people that you are getting directly into their emails, telling them your book's available and giving them your buy links. So I think that is an awesome opportunity. If your book's been out for a while, you still have the opportunity of getting people interested in looking at your book, and certainly getting some reviews out of the process. Goodreads does follow up with the winners and ask them to review. When doing a Goodreads giveaway, you can do Kindle books. I do not think that those giveaways are as popular. If you can do print books, it does not have to be like 10 or 20. Do 3 or 5 copies of your print book. If you are printing it yourself, let's say it's anywhere from $5 to $10 if you're getting your author copies, and then you send it out by media mail. You can do US or Canada only, so you can do US and Canada, or US or Canada, which I would highly recommend, so that you're not doing a bunch of shipping cost. So I figure if you can do a 99 giveaway because it's on sale, you've got a book that you can print up and ship for $10. So, and you do 3 copies, well, for $130, you've gotten a lot of marketing opportunities. You've gotten people not only putting your book on their to-read shelf, but you are directly reaching them in their inbox as well, which I think is a ton of value added. So all of that to say, yes, if you've never done a Goodreads giveaway, I think it's worth it. Keep in mind though, giveaways are not, this is not something we do every month. This is not even something we do every 3 months. This is something that we would do again with the launch of a book, or do it once after a book has been out, kind of as a refresher to reignite and excite people on Goodreads. And go for that cheaper option. I think it's awesome. Share it. It's a good way to get people over to your Goodreads author profile, which hopefully all of us, if you have an author profile, hopefully you have put in your author photo, you've put in your bio, you've linked your website so they can go over there, and you've made it easy for people to continue to reach out to you and to read your other backlist books so that you can kind of reap more and more. I think in all the things, when we are promoting our book, when we're spending time and money in marketing, it's important that we wring every last little bit of opportunity out of each thing we do. And part of that is simply making sure that your author profiles are fully fleshed out. I cannot tell you how many times I'm like, why isn't your website or your Facebook page connected to your author profile? Why aren't we giving people the opportunity to go to your website and get a freebie so you can get them on your mailing list? Your mailing list, which by the way, is a direct contact when you have a new book. Things like that. In all things, if you're going to spend time and money on a promotion, optimize it as much as possible. Let's see. What is your opinion of Kindle Vela and what genres will do best with this program? And I think it's funny that you asked, because I was just looking at a Twitter, on Twitter this morning. One of the people that I follow said, well guys, if you feel like you've been missing out on Kindle Vela, I have 2 top rated stories and like one of the top stories, and I've made exactly $1. So do I think Kindle Vela at the moment is a huge moneymaker? No. I think that Kindle Vela is starting. I think it's an opportunity, and certainly an opportunity for people who write serialized fiction or short pieces. I think it's an opportunity there to slowly get a trickle of income. Do I think this is going to be a big moneymaker? Maybe later, possibly, but I think we're kind of seeing that the short serialized fiction, people have been getting it free for a long time on places like Wattpad and different things like that. And so now on Kindle Vela, we're asking them to pay for it. And I think some people will, but some people won't. How many people will? We don't know yet. Kindle Vela really just truly launched this month, so it's still pretty new. But even if your stories are being read, Kindle Vela has been doing a lot of free tokens or cheap tokens, and that's how you pay through tokens, and that's how the author gets paid. They've been doing a lot of cheap and free tokens in order to get people onto the process. I'm hearing it does not work beautifully for Android, that it really was set up for Apple and iPhone, and also that it's connected to Kindle, so it's not its own app yet, and so that it's not as easy to use as some authors were hoping for. Now with that, I think that in Kindle Vela, audience is important. Not everyone will read on Kindle Vela. All studies have actually been done on serialized fiction and all of that, and most of the readers in serialized fiction are younger. We are talking anywhere from 10 years old to 25, 30 years old. They are mostly younger. They are people who want short little snippets. Fiction by far is doing the best there. Romance, mystery, fan fiction, fantasy, those are the kind of the topics that are doing the best there. Keep in mind that when you post Kindle Vela, it is 5,000 words or less. So I mean, it's short, and it's something that you have to kind of have a story planned out in your head and then release it little by little so that it's almost like you're selling a chapter at a time. And it could go on for a really long time though. I mean, think of your favorite TV shows that go on for years and years. Think of your soap operas, Days of Our Lives. I remember watching Days of Our Lives with my neighbor across the street while learning how to cross stitch many, many, many years ago. And Days of Our Lives is still going because it's serialized fiction. And that is the kind of stuff that people are reading as serialized fiction. Nonfiction, I don't think is doing nearly as well. Certain topics maybe, but the whole point is to build up an audience on a story or on a very specific topic and to continue writing on that. And when you're writing on nonfiction, sometimes that's not something that keeps people coming back again and again. So I think it could be done with nonfiction where maybe someone becomes the expert of boiling down big topics into 5,000 words. And that's something that I think would appeal to men more possibly. So there's opportunities, but it's all about building and following, or building a following, finding your audience and sticking in there. And it's something that if you get an audience, they tend to be very loyal. I have heard from people that it's very interesting for them when they're releasing serialized fiction that they get to see by the chapter how many people read. And so some people are saying, I was getting a lot of reads and a lot of hits, and then I lost a bunch of people on this specific chapter or on this specific part. And so they realized, hey, maybe I need to change that because they saw literally by the chapter the drop off. So I think it's very interesting, still new. Is it going to make people rich? Maybe, not yet. And it's certainly an interesting concept of actually getting people to pay for that short serialized fiction when they've been used to be getting it for free. So I think that's, I'll be watching it. I think everyone will be, but I will certainly be watching it to see how it works. All right. No, Annette, you don't get a mailing list from Kindle. It's all privacy based. So no, you don't get any information from that. Let's see. All right. From Karen, my self-published books aren't showing the look inside on Amazon. What could be the problem? If your self-published books are not showing the look inside on Amazon, simply log in to your KDP account and contact them. You do the contact us button and ask them to activate the look inside, and they will. Sometimes also if it comes over from Ingram Spark, if you are using Ingram Spark to get over to Amazon, let's say for a hardcover, there is a button that says look inside, and if you don't click it, it doesn't get turned on. So you may check there. And again, just go to Amazon, go to Author Central and ask for the look inside to be activated, and they do. When I used the KDP assigned ISBN, my book showed up on Walmart.com and Target.com searches, but when I started using my own ISBNs, my book no longer shows up in their searches. Any thoughts? Well, all that it is, the reason why, actually I've gotten this a couple times, now when you are using Ingram Spark, they are releasing your book to online retailers. Some of those online retailers that will pick up your book and put it online in their online catalog. This does not mean they're stocking it in the shelves, but it's in the online catalog. BarnesandNoble.com, Bookshop.org, IndieBound, Walmart.com, and Target.com. That all actually comes from Ingram Spark. So when you have a KDP assigned ISBN and you select expanded distribution, what's happening is that instead of you going to Ingram Spark and uploading your book with your own ISBN and having control of the distribution, when you do expanded distribution with KDP's ISBN, they are taking your book to Ingram Spark and they are uploading your book to Ingram Spark and they're taking a cut. So every time you sell a book through expanded distribution, Amazon's taking their cut, Ingram Spark is taking their cut, and you actually make less money. But what's happening, again, it's just going up on Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark is who's actually getting it up onto Walmart.com and Target.com. So if you have your own ISBN that you're using on KDP, you still have to go over to Ingram Spark and upload your book at Ingram Spark for wholesale. Do not be confused that if you are using Kindle Select for your ebook to get in Kindle Unlimited, that is exclusive to Amazon for your ebook only. Your paperback, your hardcovers can still go on Ingram Spark. So you upload your book to Ingram Spark. They will, if you select the full distribution, they will get your book up onto Walmart.com and Target.com. It does take a couple weeks after your book launches to show up usually. And so that is most likely what it is if you haven't done full distribution over on Ingram Spark. See. How soon could a first-time author set up a Goodreads author page? So anyone setting up author pages for Amazon, on Author Central, on Goodreads, on BookBub, almost all of these places require that you have a book for sale or pre-sale before they will qualify you for an author page. So if you have a book up on pre-sale, let's say you have your paperback from Ingram Spark up on pre-sale, you can then go sign up for author pages on Amazon, Author Central, and Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon, and you send them the link to your pre-sale and they vet you as saying, okay, you do have a book and you are an author. BookBub does the same thing. If you have a book live, you qualify for all of those accounts as well. If you have a book coming up, but your book is not for pre-sale, they will not approve you. It doesn't matter if you have a website and that you've got the book up there. Until you have a real sales link, they will not approve you. And you do have to have a Goodreads author profile in order to do a Goodreads giveaway. So that's important to know as well. And that is why, while I do not recommend pre-sale, certainly pre-sale directly on KDP for your paperback or your for your Kindle book, I don't really recommend pre-sale unless you're driving a ton of sales. I do recommend that if you're going to do a pre-sale for your paperback, do it through Ingram Spark. And if you're doing it, that gives you a good opportunity to go and start signing up for your author accounts early. And if you are going to do that pre-sale, again, that gives you the opportunity to do all of those things early. And if you're not doing a pre-sale, if you're like, I want to hit the algorithms hard, I want my best shot early on, and I don't want my book just sitting on Amazon with no sales, consider doing a Kindle pre-sale, but only do the Kindle pre-sale for like a week. Do it really close, because then your book will get up a week early, and that gives you the opportunity in that week to go get all of your author accounts set up, which can be really helpful. Will they accept a sales link on the publisher's website to approve your profile? Tara, it depends on who you get. I've had one approved, but it was someone who had their publisher was Penguin. So that was approved. Those that have had smaller publishers or self-published, I've had not approved. So I think it depends on who you get and how legitimate they think that pre-sale button is. That one. Yes, the pre-sale strategy, definitely. It's a big topic. Should I use MailChimp for newsletters, or what's the best way? I tried 5 years ago and it went nowhere. I failed. Okay, let's talk newsletters. I think that newsletters, I was talking to someone who is very up and coming. She's in the film industry. She's got a lot going on. She's like, newsletter, really? And I was like, I know what you're thinking. A newsletter sounds dated. And she's like, yep, sure does. And I said, but it's not the newsletter that you're thinking of. This is not your grandmother's newsletter. When we talk about newsletters, what we're really talking about is a mailing list. We are talking about email addresses directly contacting your audience, and that has a ton of value. That is something that publishers and agents are looking at. That is something that if you're trying to get foreign rights, they're looking at, because that is a direct, warm link to someone who might buy your book or your next book. And so building up your mailing list is really important. And I know we've talked about that. If you want people to sign up for your mailing list, number one, you have to ask them. Number two, you have to give them something of value. People do not just give out their email address for no reason. You have to give them something they want. If you're a nonfiction author, what can you give them? Can you give an online calculator access so that they can figure out their self-publishing taxes? Can you give them a downloadable sheet that they could really find helpful? Can you give them recipes? What can you give people that they're willing to exchange their email address from? If you're a fiction author, can you give them a bonus epilogue? Can you give them, I don't know, can you give them a music playlist that your characters would be listening to? Can you give them recipes from your book? It has to be something people want. So number one, for a mailing list and for newsletters, we've got to get people on the mailing list. And to do that, we have to offer them something good in return for their email address. And when we do that, typically the best way is to have a landing page that has that exact information on there, and or to have it as a pop-up on your website, which I know we talked about a week or two back. So once you do that, once you've got some people on your mailing list, what in the world do you do with it? Do you actually have to send out a newsletter? Does it have to be weekly? Does it have to be monthly? There are a couple different options. When you have a newsletter, it could be something that you update monthly. Maybe once a month, you just put out Karen's news, and it's whatever's going on with a short article from you and helpful links. Maybe like New Shelves has New Shelves news that you can use, and it is an industry newsletter that talks about what's happening in publishing and book marketing and authorship. So we have things that people actually, they do actually read. Sometimes I'm always amazed when I get people like, oh, I read through every article. But it's helpful happenings in our industry, because our industry is big and it's currently changing. Once a week makes sense. But for some people, it doesn't. Some people simply build that mailing list and they only use it when they have a new book or big news. And that's okay too. As long as you have a plan for how to use it, it's okay to use it in that capacity. You don't have to email people every week. Unless you have something to say, don't email them every week. I think that's important too. Don't email them just to email them. No one wants nonsense in their inbox. If you want to email them, make sure you have a reason and a purpose. As far as what format to use, there is Constant Contact, there is MailChimp, there are a number of free or paid newsletters. Most of the mailing things, they are free up to a point, and when you get enough contacts or you're using it enough, you pay for it. Here at New Shelves, we use MailChimp, but we've been using MailChimp for a really, really long time. We have been grandfathered into a lot of things. So, and our MailChimp account is also really, really big. We have thousands and thousands of people on our mailing list between our libraries and bookstores and our authors and publishers and things like that. So we have such a big account that it makes sense for us to have MailChimp. And some people don't love MailChimp. That's cool. Go to Constant Contact and try them out. Go to do a Google search and see what's up there, and just see what works for you. See what option and pricing works for you. The most important thing is that you have a place to house all of your the email addresses that you collect. The best options will have integration so that when someone signs up on your website, it integrates immediately into your mailing list on MailChimp, Constant Contact, whatever it is. And it's a way for you to format easily nice newsletters, because we want things to be visually appealing. We want them to be easy to read. And typically having a mailing system makes that easier to do. And I think that when you're doing this too, think of branding. What can you do with your mailing that makes you stand out? Are you going to have the most cutting edge news? Are you going to always have something funny? Bob Eckstein, who we know and love, always, like, it's the Bob is his email address, and it's always got funny cartoons in it. It's always got something to make you laugh, which we love. That's kind of his mark. I was talking to an author the other day who was talking about how she really likes to include a little section for her cat. And I was like, become the best, most famous cat lady in the best way possible. I want like funny cat memes or videos on everything. I think it's fun to bring people to us for kind of that thing they know they're going to get from you. And every newsletter, no matter what's included, they're also going to get a funny cat video. And people will, believe it or not, open it just for that because they kind of come to expect it. So I think that we kind of need to brand and give people a reason to open our newsletters, and only write when you have something to say. Do not write just because you feel like it or you feel like you have to. No one wants their inbox cluttered up just because. So let's not do that to people. All right. Yes, I saw the blog post about licensing and foreign licensing by Anna Termini. Great article. How can a self-published author take advantage of this opportunity? That is a great question, Karen. As far as, for those of you who missed it on the New Shelves blog, we had Anna Termini, who is, she does foreign rights deals and licensing for movies and all sorts of things, write an article about what's trending in subsidiary rights in 2021, and also talk a little bit about how you can do that. And I think that if you think your book is a good fit for one of these subsidiary rights, like audiobook or foreign rights, different things like that, the most important thing you can do is get a pitch together and start your researching. You have to have a compelling argument for why your book would succeed in these subsidiary rights opportunities, so that when you have the opportunity to pitch, it's compelling. You can't just say, I think my book should be, translated into Spanish. Why? Do you have sales in Spanish countries? Do you have a big following there? Are you from Spain and you have a lot of contacts there who've asked for this translation? I think that's one of the things that when people think of, I want my book translated, or I want my book made into film, or whatever it is, you have to have some supporting idea that people will want that. Because when people are doing this, when a publisher takes you on, when someone is licensing your intellectual property for subsidiary rights, they are making a bet on you. They are betting that people will be interested in what you have to offer. And they need to make good bets. They need to do their research and make sure that there's a chance of it actually paying off for them. So I think it's really important that you do that for them, that your pitch includes that. And then when you're ready, find the niche you hope to break into and start researching who are the players. Start pitching them. Just start pitching them. You can also absolutely work with an agent who does this. Anna Termini is an agent who does that. She will license out things. And there are other agents who will do it as well. So you have to know exactly what you want. Find the niche you want to hit, do your research of how you fit in the niche and how the market will accept you, so that you've got, it's not just saying, please put my book into Spanish. It's, please put my book into Spanish, license these rights because I've sold X amount of copies in this region. I've been asked for Spanish translation, and this topic is trending in Spanish titles. That is compelling. That is something that will get people, over and interested in what you have to offer. Too often, I think we fall short of the research. We just say, I want my book in Spanish. Great. Lots of people want their book in Spanish. Who cares? I hate to be harsh, but that's kind of what people are thinking when you pitch them. But when you pitch them with some stats, you pitch them with some research, then you get their attention. So definitely there. Bobby, I see your question, and I am going to search my email inbox for your email, and I also have your phone number. So if I can't find it, I'll give you a call. All right, I think we have covered all of our questions today, unless we have any more. But I got the happiest thing in my mail today, and I have to show you guys. So speaking of Bob, it's all about Bob. So this week we have this book from Bob, The Elements of Stress, which is funny because that's what Bob is. He's funny, right? It's all about stress, and it's got all these cartoons and stuff, which is honestly sometimes my favorite way to read is by pictures. So that was fun. And I know we have recently talked about swag, and so I loved it when from Bob came this envelope with these little elements of stress, little just squeeze things. I have been sitting here on phone calls like this and just squeezing for like the last 3 days. So thank you, Bob. And again, talking about, yes, it's a stress ball in book form. Again, I know we've talked about this, but if you can get something that fits in with your book, the elements of stress, and we've got a stress ball book for book swag, guys, this is genius marketing, and I love it. So just to encourage you guys, if you ever wonder, does book swag work? Well, in my book, Bob gets an A+ because this was awesome. I did have to fend off my children who wanted my swag, and I had to, swat them off with the book. Lovingly, of course, but I thought that was so fun. So Bob, well done. And if you are feeling stressed out, go check out The Elements of Stress because it's hilarious. All right, you guys, I think we covered everything for today. We'll be back next week, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you have questions that maybe you can't join us live, feel free to just email them in. Questions with an S at freeadvicefridays.com. We are also on Facebook under Free Advice Fridays for publishers and authors, so you can join us there. And always on newshelves.com. We try to make sure that we have lots of content for you to learn and grow from. And it's been awesome. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.